Live and die on this day. Live and die on this day. Welcome to part 2 of Cultural Defaults, Analysis of the Grey. If you missed part 1, it is linked in the description below. We left John Otway sinking in despair. For the moment, he has defeated his demons. The film cuts to Otway boarding a plane, still somber and pensive, taking out and reading his letter. His quiet is interrupted by Todd Flannery, played intentionally obnoxiously by Joe Anderson. Todd is a crass, immature man, channeling Steve Buscemi from Fargo. Otway assertively shuts down Flannery, enough that the man elects to change seats just prior to takeoff. Otway's isolation is reinforced here, where he would prefer to spend time with a letter to someone he truly and deeply cares about as a memory, rather than a disappointing and juvenile reality. Flannery goes on about his shallow relationships with women, while Otway is blunt and short about not having a woman waiting for him. The plane hits distressing turbulence, and Flannery makes ill-received comments about the poor guidance standard for a plane crash. The other passengers are annoyed by his tempting fate, which, of course, unfolds to be prophetic. The curse of Cassandra, in Greek mythology, was to be able to see the future and for none to believe her. Or, to borrow from a great YouTuber, Count Dankula.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
It doesn't take long before the film gives us a terrifying crash indeed. Otway, now sitting alone, uses both seatbelts of his row to tie himself down, showing him to be an unconventional but quick thinker under extreme pressure. As the crash nears and intensity surges, Otway has a vision of lying with his wife in a familiar bed we've seen before in the flashbacks, before she is ripped away and the bed becomes snow in a quick and effective bit of filmmaking. Artful though it may be, the logistics to the following scene make little sense on a literal level. How does Otway end up completely apart from the wreck, thrown far from the plane at a crashing speed, and survive? Why is he surrounded only by bare snow and no additional wreckage? Conveniently, the immediate journey to this circumstance is not something we see. It makes more sense spiritually and thematically. It reinforces the solitary aspect of the quest for survival. Having a group of others will help, but one's death, and thusly life, are a personal, individual circumstance. The bed of comfort is replaced with a bed of snow. He awakes, alone, disoriented, shivering cold and recovering from shock. The wrecked plane sits nearby on the white horizon, where the other survivors are more realistically scattered. The trait of being a chatterbox now serves Flannery as calls for help are needed. Otway attempts to treat his shock by acquiring focus, attempting to get him to tune out the bifurcated body that sits next to him. He also tells Flannery that it's good that it hurts, which is a damn optimistic little insight, keying us in that Otway is quick to discover what is salvageable. The man's spine would seem to be intact, and shock hasn't completely taken over. Otway then quickly finds some additional clothing from stray luggage, then attends to another survivor, one suffering from more dissociative shock. When Otway discovers someone whom he cannot save, He is shockingly blunt, but gentle about the man's imminent death, mirroring Otway's earlier treatment of the wolf. The man jumps to attempting to bargain against this inevitability, but Otway tells him to think of those he loves and let it slide over. He is a Charon-like guide into death. It occurs to me now that Otway's name is a bit of nominative determinism. Ot, as in ought, zero, nothing. Way, as in the path. He is a guide on the road to death and oblivion. And as the plot unfolds, we see it may be for the better or for the worse. The film then moves for the moment to, and forgive this pun, more grounded concerns, as Otway collects the survivors and leads them into scavenging for materials from the crashed plane. His focus is Promethean. Fire will keep them warm and prevent their death. After that, food. Some consider how to treat the bodies, and Otway's main rival in the group, Diaz, considers this unworthy of attention. They will become bodies themselves if they do not act. The relationship and contrasts between Diaz and Otway elaborates through the film, but even at this early stage, he shows himself to be an opposite for the protagonist. Unconcerned about the passageway to death, but not without some key commonalities. He sports a noticeable neck tattoo that says, "No mas," meaning no more. More on that later. Fire is started and night falls. Otway notices a body moving and rushes over, having seemingly failed to identify another survivor. As he approaches, he finds that a wolf is eating the corpse, moving it as it feeds. Otway charges and violently struggles with the beast, before others rush in to fend it off. Canine behavior can be aggressive around food, so perhaps this is normal wolf behavior. The vicious fight seems to indicate either this wolf was starving and unwilling to yield, or this beast is not a wolf, but a movie monster. Movie monsters, be it Michael Myers, King Kong, Godzilla, or a velociraptor, often represent more than a simple entity, but an idea, an unstoppable force of human malice, man's attempt to capture the wild, nuclear annihilation, or the threat of scientific advancement. Here, wolves might represent the hostility found in feral lands outside of civilization, or demons that exist just outside of our spiritual core. I contend still that the choice remains yours. Tending to his wounds around the fire, Otway explains to the group that the wolf was likely not alone, but odds are good that they are just passing through, and acquiring food is a larger concern. He ideates that proximity to the wolves' den would mean that they would be hostile, and they cannot know how close they are. Again, this may be literal wolf behavior, but it can also be seen as a commentary on moral confusion, the den being hell, and a nihilistic universe offering no guidance, disorienting any capacity to avoid such an undesirable direction. Apropos of orientation, Diaz finds a beeping GPS watch, a beacon of hope, a possible route to salvation. But he also loots the owner's body for swag, meaning cash, utterly useless within their current circumstances, but Diaz's scavenging might be motivated by the watch. He now has the optimism to expect a future capacity to use money, meaning he thinks there is a return to society and he can exploit the dead for his future life. Otway aggressively forces him to cease this looting, leading to a near-violent confrontation over how we respect the dead. What is truly remarkable about this is that later on, another survivor suggests collecting wallets to remember the dead, and Otway consents. The action of taking their wallet is not the point, it is the moral context of doing so. More in Part 3.